The Straw Hats, now with the company of the Fire Fist pirate Ace of the Whitebeard crew, would join them in their travels through the desert as they attempted to make their way to Alubarna, the capital of Alabasta and home to the royal family, the Nafutaris. Vivi hoped that she could dissuade the civil war that was being waged in her land, a war that would split her country in two, all for the takings of the corrupt warlord, Crocodile. However, in order to get to the capital, Alubarna, the crew would have to pass through the city Rain Base, which was the home and operation of Crocodile as well as his members of Baroque Works. Just as in the original story, Captain Smoker, along with Tashigi, would be chasing after the Straw Hats and would soon lead to their arrival at Rain Base, where upon their capturing of the Straw Hats would lead them into the unexpected clutches of Crocodile, who would end up capturing a few members of the Straw Hats and Smoker in the process, this including Volko, Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Vivi, as well as Ace, who, unlike in the original story, had a connection to both Luffy and Volko and felt indebted to them in a sense. So, unlike in the original timeline, where Ace would only provide an assistance in allowing them to escape before heading off on his journey, he instead would follow with the Straw Hats here, and in the process would also lead to his capture as well, as they found themselves underground in the diner and casino known as Rain Dinners, where the secret base and operations of Crocodile, as well as his organization of Baroque Works, was now in effect. And this led them to a meeting with the man of the hour. Crocodile was impressed, seeing how far the Straw Hats had managed to come, and for Vivi, the princess who had been the thorn in his proverbial side, seeing that she had actually managed to get some help, some decent help at that. Of course, for Vivi, she wanted confirmation of the truth, to know of what was going to happen to her people, and feeling generous to give her the information, seeing as how this was going to be the end of her and her meddling once and for all, he decided to tell them the truth. The truth was, Alabasta was a very, very profitable country, one that he wanted to take over fully. He didn't just like having the small operations. No, Crocodile was aiming to go higher. He had greater aspirations, and Alabasta was going to be one of the crown jewels of his accomplishments. Of course, as a warlord, it gave him unique status unlike most other pirates in the world. It was a license of piracy, allowing him to go where he want and do what he want. All he had to do was be at the government's beck and call and fight a few wars, kill a few people, do this and do that. But as a pirate, it's what he already did anyway. And they wouldn't mind if Alabasta fell into his hands. But of course, he couldn't just straight up kill the royal family and take it. No, that would be breaching the contract, so to speak. But if Alabasta were to go into a civil war that was started by the royal family and the people were looking for someone to liberate them, then that's where the warlord steps in. Along with running a successful and profitable business in Alabasta, disposing of an evil dictator king, well, that was textbook 101 in terms of overthrowing a kingdom. The rebels, the people, those who were oppressed, they would be grateful to Crocodile and for his intervention. As such, he gains the loyalty of an entire nation that would now be in his back pocket. Resources would be abundant, and with his status as a warlord, he has the government at his disposal also. There was no disadvantage. Of course, for Vivi, she was absolutely disgusted by this show of evil. Crocodile, A man that gave no regard for anyone or anything but himself. He wouldn't even care for the people. He was just using them, using their naivety, foolishness that he had caused. But of course, Crocodile didn't really care. And in the end, they were all going to die anyway. He had already rigged for the underground room to flood, thus drowning away all of his worries. But unfortunately for Crocodile, he would be running into a little bit of a problem here. For one, two of his kidnappees, Luffy and Vulko, they would be different from the others. They were Atlanteans. Thus, drowning them, that wasn't going to be feasibly possible. And just as in the original story, Sanji would arrive to help get the key to opening their cell from one of the vicious giant crocodiles that was attempting to attack them. But even that wouldn't be much of a worry, since both Vulko and Luffy would have the ability to speak to creatures of the sea, which would include giant monstrous crocodiles. Being able to submit them with their underwater telepathy and putting them under control, they were able to force them to cough up the key that they had swallowed, and thus the Sea Prism cell would be opened. Of course, for this, Smoker would gain confirmation that Luffy and Vulko were not ordinary pirates. They were indeed Atlanteans. So, my hunch was correct, Smoker would say. You're not just average pirates. You are people of the ocean. Atlanteans. Well, you have excellent deduction skills, Captain, Vulko would say. Yes, that is what we are. And I'm pretty sure if we were on your target list before, we definitely are now. I understand why you have to come after us, and I don't begrudge you for it. But I think you and I can both agree that right now there are things way bigger than this game of cat and mouse. For Smoker, he had to consider Vulko's option. And for all of the Straw Hats, this oldest one here definitely spoke with the most reason. Yes, they were pirates, and there was always going to be time to chase after them and bring them to justice, as it were. But now they were dealing with a much bigger monster on their hands. Was he really going to waste time chasing after the Straw Hats? Or did he have to stop Crocodile? He already didn't have a trust for pirates, but now a corrupt pirate that was abusing the system? Of course, it was a system that they created. Smoker was never really a fan of the whole warlord idea, but of course, he didn't have the power to change anything. He could only go along with it, although he really didn't like it. The idea of giving certain pirates freedom, even if you were fighting fire with fire, in the end, everyone just got burnt, and Alabasta was going to be the prime example of it. As the Straw Hats were freed along with Smoker, he decided that for just this time, he wasn't going to go after them. Instead, he was going to make contact with Tashigi and with their vessel that was still by the docks. They were going to launch a campaign into Alabasta to stop Crocodile and Baroque Works once and for all. He was the bigger target. But make no mistake, when the time came, the Straw Hats, they would be back on his to-do list. One way or another, any pirate that crossed his path were going to be brought in. In the meantime, as the Straw Hats would manage to escape, they would be picked up by Chopper, who had made friends with a giant moving crab named Scissors. And this giant crab that was capable of traveling through the desert effectively was going to help them get where they needed to go, from Rain Base to Alabasta. But of course, their movements were being tracked, as Crocodile, much to his chagrin, would discover that his hostages had escaped. Of course, he probably could have sent more members of Baroque Works to deal with it, But sometimes there are some things you just have to deal with yourself. As the Straw Hats were escaping on the giant crab out into the open desert, as the sun was beginning to set, a torrent of sand tornadoes formed around them, specifically trying to target Vivi. Above all else, killing her was the top priority. But before he could get a chance to, he would be stopped as Luffy and Vulko would jump off of the crab. Ace was prepared to follow his brother in the battle, but Vulko told Ace to stay with the group. "You need to help protect the princess," Vulko would say. "Don't worry, we'll catch up with you soon enough." "Fine. You better, old man. And you too, Luffy." Luffy would give the thumbs up to his brother, along with a cheeky grin, as he and his master turned to face Crocodile. Ah, yes. A young man and an old-timer who liked to play with trinkets. "It's called a Triton," Luffy said, as he pulled his from his back, along with Vulko, who did the same. "Stay on your guard, Luffy. He's not like anyone else that you've ever faced before. I can tell he's different." "I think I'll humor you. You get 3 minutes. Crocodile would then begin to create sandstorms, sending them off to attack at both Luffy and Vulko, who stood back to back, weathering the torrents of strong, gusterous sand. Vulko was able to deduce quickly that Crocodile must have been a devil fruit user, someone who had eaten a fruit that allowed him to control sand. No wonder why he wanted Alabasta. A country like this was perfect for him. Yes, Crocodile was in possession of the Suna Suna no Mi, the Sand fruit, type Logia, that gave him the abilities of turning any part of his body into sand. With his right hand, he had the power of dehydrification, and with a single touch, he could take the moisture out of anything. And with his left hand, a modified metallical hook that was very dangerous when skewered through, and had a unique poison that could take out any enemy. Luffy and Vulko would battle off against Crocodile. As they combined in their skills of Triton warfare, Crocodile found himself fighting against 2 capable individuals. Though it didn't take him long to deduce that between Luffy and Vulko, Vulko was definitely the most experienced. He was able to fend off on defense way more effectively than Luffy, and even play on offense. It was Luffy who was actually slowing him down, and Crocodile took special attention in targeting him. Because now Vulko had to defend on 2 fronts, protecting himself and protecting Luffy. Of course, this came to him naturally, but Crocodile would take advantage of this. As he managed to snag at Luffy's leg, it began to shrivel up instantly, his left leg beginning to turn into something of a drying fruit, becoming a lot more scrawnier and weaker. Luffy would have to be pushed out of the way as Vulko would defend against him once more, and Luffy would have to grab hold of his barrel of water just to be able to drink in to restore the feeling to his leg once again. If I were 50 years younger, there's no doubt in my mind I would have been able to kill him a while ago. But it seems old age is even catching up with me. Luffy. Yeah, Vulko? Stay out of this. What? I'm going to finish him in 1 strike. But I can't do it if you keep getting in the way. But just focus on defending yourself, Luffy. The only thing that matters right now is that we win. It doesn't matter how. Trust me, you'll have plenty of chances to shine in the spotlight. But now's the time for me to stop holding back. Stop holding back? Crocodile would say. I'd be careful with your choice of words, old man. When you say stop holding back, that might put you in the elderly home. You sure are something, Crocodile. You're definitely powerful, and that devil fruit of yours, it's so unique. But you devil fruit users are all the same. You're so focused on the power that you neglect the true power that you could have had. This is true power. In case you forgot, you're in my domain. All of this, it belongs to me. The sand answers to me. You're surrounded. Where is my disadvantage? Your disadvantage? You lack spirit. And that will be your downfall. Volko would tap his trident into the ground as he closed his eyes and began to focus. Immediately, a strong aura would emanate from him, an aura so powerful that Luffy found himself staggering back. He had felt this aura once before, a long time ago. But even with this aura not being charged directly at him, a part of him felt like he had to take a knee, as if he were in the presence of someone who could take his life, the presence of a king. Why this feeling was coming over him, he didn't know. Was this really the power that Volko hadn't taught him yet? The true power? For Crocodile, even he felt the pressure weighing on his shoulders. Immediately, Volko's arms would begin to be covered in black, as well as his trident. As Volko would then look to Crocodile, he would swing with his trident, slashing at Crocodile in the chest, causing him to stagger back as he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. He felt his blood. What the? No. How are you? That's just a taste of what you're going to get. You and I are in two different heavens. My power is the power that was blessed from my spirit. My spirit made manifest. My spirit of a conqueror. The spirit that gives me insight and observation. The spirit that protects me. Spirit. Yeah, right. Cut with the preaching nonsense. This is the power passed down from generation to generation. A power that was made that triumphs anything a devil fruit user could ever hope to wield. This is the power of Haki. Haki. Crocodile had heard that word a few times. It was some ancient mumbo-jumbo, some nonsense, that using one's own spirit could give you power. Of course, Crocodile never believed it was possible, but now here was living proof. Crocodile knew that playtime was over. He would merge with the sand around them, creating a giant torrent of sand, the ultimate sandstorm. This is where your journey ends, Pops. You and the kid. You're gonna be buried in a sea of sand, lost to time and forgotten. Crocodile would attempt to do just that. However, Volko would fend off against Crocodile at every turn, and he was taking more and more damage. But for Volko, he couldn't hold this state for too long. For one, He hadn't been in a fight this intense in almost 100 years. This was far different from the old days. When he went into hiding, he rarely had to exercise this much power. And now in his older years, as he had finally reached the twilight of his age, he was definitely more towards the end than the beginning. He knew that he had to finish this fight quickly. He waited for his opportunity, and when he saw his opening, he picked up his trident and he threw it, striking true as it managed to pierce Crocodile in the shoulder blade, causing him to fall to the ground. Volko would immediately rush over to strike down against him, when suddenly, 2 shots could be heard. The gunshots rang out as Volko at the last moment would evade the attacks. He turned to see what had happened. He had managed to dodge, but not Luffy. Volko? Luffy! More shots would begin to ring out as Volko would attempt to cover and protect both himself and Luffy. Crocodile looked around to see what was happening. Chains would begin to jut out as well, shackles wrapping around the man and the boy, capturing and holding them in place. And from the dark shadows of the sands, men dressed in black with large silver helmets and red glowing eyes would now surround them. There were those who were carrying the shackle and chains in question, others with their guns drawn, firing at the both of them until eventually they went down. Targets acquired. What's the meaning of this? If I were you, one of the men said, I'd stand down and stay out of government business, if you know what's best for you. And just who the hell are you? Crocodile asked. The older man, along with a younger one standing next to him, would speak. With all due respect, Mr. Crocodile, this is none of your damn business. All you need to know is that these two are under our custody, not yours. You're free to return back to your operations. After all, I'm sure you got a lot of planning to do. I see how it is. But you and I are all part of the same game. We're on the same side, and no, we're not, the younger man said. We actually have a duty, a code. You're nothing but gutter trash. A filthy pirate who got a pardon because the government just needs more lap dogs to take care of the other dogs. You ain't nothing special. I watch who you're talking to, kid. The desert's a big place. It's nothing but a giant cemetery with no tombstones. Easy, son. Look, the government, they want these two. World government. I'm talking about the head honchos. The Gorosei? Exactly. So if you interfere in our business, you're interfering in Gorosei business. And trust me, you don't want to interfere with Gorosei business. Because if they knew who was in your employee, well, we'd be shutting down your operations as well, Mr. Zero. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a happily employed warlord and entrepreneur. As for the people in my employ, I don't go asking about their past or anything like that. Word on the street is the devil child's in your midst. The devil child? Please. Last I heard, she was running around cosplaying as some doctor or whatever. Trust, You're not going to find the devil child here in Alabasta. And if you did, I'd hand her over myself personally. I'm sure you would, the older man said. So how exactly did you take him down, huh? I'm pretty sure it takes a lot more than regular bullets when it comes to these two, and we have our methods. But do we have an agreement? Also, as a sign of good faith, we'll make sure that Smoker stays off your back. I appreciate that. You know, it gets really cramped around here, especially having Marines running around, you know. The people are more trusting to a guy like me. Yeah, I bet they are. They don't know what they're getting themselves into. But we'll leave you to it now, Mr. Crocodile. Enjoy the rest of your night. The two men in question would return as they made sure that Luffy and Vulko were in cuffs, making sure that they were properly secure before they began to take their leave. Off in the distance, a figure shrouded in a cloak would watch what was happening, waiting until Crocodile had taken his leave in an attempt to chase after the other Straw Hats. The members of the Black Manta Corps in question would carry Luffy and Vulko in the opposite direction back to the harbor where their submarine would be waiting. Seemed way too easy, Pops. Nah, nothing's ever easy when dealing with an Atlantean. Just be fortunate that we're fighting with one that's past his prime and one that's too naive to know how strong he really is. So what next? Next, we load them up onto the ship and we set sail directly to Marine Ford. From there, we hand them over to the Gorosei and we collect our pay and then we're out of here. Just that simple? It's always that simple, son. But I've been meaning to give you something. The two stopped as the group would walk on ahead with their cargo. This belonged to your grandfather. He was the last one to capture an Atlantean before us. I want you to have it. He gave his son a dagger, an emerald blade. That there is pure sea prism stone. No Atlantean can cut through it, and it can cut down any one of them that you come across. Who knows? Maybe someday when you have a son of your own and you're out there in the seas, you might stumble across another Atlantean if you're lucky. I don't know what to say. You did good. Honestly, I've been thinking about getting out the game for a while now. The seas are getting more and more crazier each day. And you know, I can't really go running around chasing like I used to. I'm thinking about stepping down from the Black Manta Corps. And when I do, I know the perfect man to take my place. The father and son duo would put on their helmets as they continued their trek into the night. Their targets had been acquired, the Atlanteans, and now it was time to return their bounties to their bidders. This concludes One Piece King of the Sea, What If Luffy Was Aquaman, Season 2, Part 6. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have to offer, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is Power Core Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned tomorrow evening as we continue with One Piece King of the Sea, What If Luffy Was Aquaman, Season 2, Part 7. But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with Power Core Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.